Okay, so for our next video, we have here ARC sections 60A.10 through 13, and we'll be discussing how to comply with the ARC sections that are relevant to the engagement. So first it says that if we're performing a review, compilation, or preparation engagement, we need to do it in accordance with SSARS, and that's what we're going through now. And that's except for in the case of when it's a review of interim financial information, as discussed in section 90, which we will eventually get to. But to summarize that, if the interim financial information is related to a company that's being audited, then the AUC sections, the auditing sections, are the ones that promulgate the rules related to that and not this review section. So you should go there instead. But we'll discuss that more in detail once we get to it. So now let's kind of discuss how to comply with the ARC sections if they are relevant to our engagement. And so first, let's get an understanding of what exactly the ARC sections are. And I think that will make this section easier to understand. So let's go to the website for the Statements on Standards for Accounting and Review Services for SSARS. So here we have the website where the preparation, compilation, and review standards are kept. And if you want to look at them more in detail, this is the website you can go to. So let's scroll down a bit here. We see what we're going through now is ARC section 60A, and this gives a general overview of the principles that are related to each of these types of engagements. And then each of the individual specific types of engagements has their own section. So section 70 applies to preparation engagements, section 80 to compilation engagements, section 90A to review engagements. And then we have a few other sections down here. Compilations of pro forma financial information is at 120. And so when the section we're going through now discusses ARC sections, this is what they mean, each of these different individual sections. So let's go back to the requirements that we were going through. Okay, we're back to ARC section 60A. And so it says that the accountant should comply with all ARC sections relevant to the engagement, and that an ARC section is relevant to the engagement when the ARC section is in effect and the circumstances addressed by the ARC section exist. So we only need to comply with the ARC sections that are relevant to our particular engagement. So if we're performing a review, we don't necessarily have to comply with the ARC section related to preparation or compilation engagements. And if we're performing a compilation engagement, we don't necessarily have to comply with the ARC section related to reviews or preparations. But we do need to comply with the one we're going through now, ARC section 60A, which it applies to all engagements under SSARS. So next we have here at section 12, the accountant should have an understanding of the entire text of an ARC section. So that includes its application and other explanatory material to understand its objectives and apply its requirements properly. So to make sure we understand this, let's go and just go through this particular section so we understand the different areas within each of these ARC sections and how these are structured. Okay, so here we're at the top of ARC section 60A, and we have a title, and all of these ARC sections are structured like this. We have a title, General Principles for Engagements Performed in Accordance with SSARS. It says what SSARS number this ARC section comes from, as well as the effective dates. And then we usually have an introduction, which tells the scope of the particular section, so what types of engagements or transactions does the section apply to. And then we have some objectives to tell us what are we trying to achieve when we are applying this ARC section. Then we usually have some definitions that point out how we should interpret different terms as they apply to these sections. And then we get into requirements, and these are ways that the writers of these sections have determined that we might achieve the objective. So if we comply with each of these requirements, we will achieve the objectives that we just saw. So requirements can be a lot, or sometimes they can be very few. And then once we get past the requirements section, we get to an application and other explanatory material section. So this section supports the requirements. For instance, scope of this section, it references paragraph 01 and 04. So if we were to go up to paragraph 01 and 04 here, these would reference paragraphs A4 through A11 that we were at. So they provide us some more explanations of how we might go about achieving or complying with the requirements in an effort to achieve the objectives. And these can be really short, and sometimes they can be really long. And some of these sections have exhibits that will have some additional information that will help us understand how to achieve the requirements as well. So now we have an understanding of the structure of these ARC sections. We can understand what all we need to comply with and better understand what they're trying to tell us here. Okay, so now we're back in the requirements. And to reiterate this number 12 here, the accountant should have an understanding of the entire text of an ARC section, including its application and other explanatory material to understand its objectives and apply its requirements properly. So we just saw how the ARC sections are structured. So this is telling us that we need to understand the entire text. not just the objectives or just the requirements, we also need to understand the explanatory material, which will be helpful for us to achieve our objectives related to this. It's also here at 13. It says an accountant should not represent compliance with SARs in an accountant's compilation or review report unless the accountant has complied with the requirements of this section and all other ARC sections relevant to the engagement. So if we are drafting or issuing our report here, we can't say that we complied with SARs if we didn't. And in order to comply with SARs, we have to comply with each of the ARC sections that are relevant to the engagement, which includes this one that we're in, ARC section 60A, plus one of the others, at least one of the others that are related specifically to the type of engagement that we're doing, whether it's a compilation, a review, or a preparation engagement.